Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We're just going to give it a couple minutes before we start. So don't mind the silence. We're just going to give it a few more minutes and we'll be right back and start the show. Hello, everyone. So excited. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm very excited. My name is Alexis De Jesus. I am part of the Tequeria Familia, and we have partnered with an amazing company, as you all know, and you signed up for. It's called Asana. We're really excited to have you all here. So this program is called Lección de Crecimiento con Asana, and it is such a great program that we've pieced together for you. This program is about learning and gaining insight and growing and building your career path as an engineer. And I know that aside from that, we all know that there's been so many other operations and roles that have opened within the engineering industry, such as people managing and a lot more going on. So this is definitely a program for you if you're looking for transitioning, leveling up, whatever the case. So also, in addition, hello, Naida. How are you? Sorry, I'm just going to start shouting people out in the chat and saying hi to you guys as well. So yeah, and also just a little brief background about what Asana is and the amazing people part of it. Asana is a project management tool. It brings your teams, work, apps together all in one place. So it's very convenient, right? And in this time and age, this is what we need, convenience. So you're able to get any of your plans started, manage all your work, your team's work from start to finish using this platform. So with that being said, without further ado, I am going to pass it to Danielle James. She is an amazing individual. She is the partnerships and event manager located in New York City. And she is going to also introduce her team, her Asana team. And also, if you haven't noticed, there's people dropping their names, roles, or whatever. So don't hesitate, feel free, put all your information there. This is definitely such an interactive and engaging opportunity. And yeah, so I'm just gonna pass right over to Danielle, and I'll be in the background as well.
Thank you, Alexis, and hi everyone. I'm loving seeing where you all are from. I'm seeing people from Phoenix, Nigeria, Ohio, Florida, and my hometown, New York City. So welcome everyone. I am Danielle. My pronouns are she and her, and I manage events and partnerships at Asana. We are so happy to be here with you all. One of the most beautiful parts of working at Asana, and in my role in particular, is that I get to form partnerships with amazing organizations like Tequeria, and through events like these, get to really connect with community members like you. As Alexis mentioned earlier, today we are here to demystify the different ways that you can grow as an engineer. Being a people manager is one of the better known ways that you can grow into a leadership role, but it's not the only way. And so I am joined here by my colleagues, JD, Christie, and Dan, who all are in different engineering lead roles at Asana. Today, my colleagues are going to discuss how they got here, what steps they took, and also what detours they went on, because a career like life is not always linear. I know neither my life nor my career were. So they're gonna share what their titles really mean, what their work days look like, and then they'll also share some steps that you can take should you want to follow a similar path. As you listen to, sorry, I apologize for the background noise. As you listen to the panelists, I encourage you to reflect on your own journey, because after the panel, you'll be able to share a little bit more about where you've been, and more importantly, perhaps where you're going in small group breakout sessions. So we'll really get to bond a little bit in smaller groups and get to know, what's next for your career and how we could potentially support one another to get there. With that, let's get started. So JD, Christie, and Dan, hi, and thank you for joining us. Hello, hello. Please introduce yourself. So if you can just share your name, your hometown, and the last song you listened to.
I can start. I'm Christie. I work here at Asana as a tech lead on my team. My hometown, so like where I was born, or like where I feel like my home is, I'll just say where my home is. I live in Orinda, that's in like Contra Costa County. And the last song I listened to, oh man, I have a 4-year-old, so we pretty much have Turning Red on repeat. So one of those songs, I'm sure, was the last song I heard. I'll pass it on to Dan.
Thanks, Christie. My name is Dan Ubilla. I am an engineering manager at Asana. I am based in Brooklyn, New York. And similar to Christie, the last song I heard was probably the theme song to one of the Spider-Man TV shows or cartoons that my kids are watching right now. JD, take it away.
Hey everybody, JD, pronouns he, him, his. I am a senior security engineer at Asana, hometown, San Diego, California. I love the weather. I'm a weather snob. It's always like 70 degrees here. Last song is Itiotani by Chicano Batman.
Thank you all. Before I dive into the panel questions, Alexis is going to launch a poll. So we just want to get a sense of which engineering growth path you would like to pursue, or which one you're on. So feel free to respond to the poll. Okay, I see a couple of responses coming in. If you're not sure, feel free to put other, or if your choice is not listed here, feel free to put other as well. And if you want to share with us what that other means, please drop it in the chat. Okay, so it looks like the majority of people are on a different type of growth path. I am excited to learn what that means, and hopefully we'll get to learn a little bit more in the breakout rooms later, and then followed by senior individual contributor, okay, and people manager, and then program lead. Well, thank you all for sharing. I think our panelists are going to be able to share, just exactly what their paths were and what their jobs look like. So I'd be curious to know if anyone wants to, oh, here, let's share the results so you can see it. If today's inspiration sparks, someone to pursue a specific path or potentially shift their path, or if after today's conversation, you might feel like the path that you're on is aligned with your values and where you want to be. So thank you for sharing here. Okay, so let's get right into it. So panelists, what is your job title and what does that mean exactly? Dan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to, Danielle. So I'm an engineering manager at Asana, and there are lots of different forms of that, and that's certainly the case at Asana. My current role is as an engineering lead for the development lifecycle org. The development lifecycle organization is focused on developer productivity. So in this role, I'm leading a team of teams of about 25 engineers, 4 engineering managers, and I am helping to organize teams, manage and mentor those managers. I am managing a staff engineer that is thinking about technical leadership across all of these teams. And ultimately, I'm trying to make sure that my teams have a shared sense of purpose, that we are all kind of rowing our boats in the same direction. In developer productivity, every bit of improvement that we can make, every second or minute we could shave off of our developers' workflows, our internal developers' workflows, saves just tons of time. So we get to feel a ton of impact. And then when we get to go have lunch with our friends, we get to hear all about what we are fixing for them, and hopefully not too much about what you may or may not be breaking.
Wow, Dan, those are big teams you lead. I'm looking forward to learning more about what that's like. JD, how about you? What does your job title really mean?
Yeah, so I'm a senior security engineer, but security is a pretty wide discipline. So my focus is on corporate security, which mostly means that my team is responsible for implementing security controls and reducing risk across IT and employee assets. So think of things like, there's a Chrome vulnerability out there. How do we make sure that all of our employees are being patched against this vulnerability? Like, what are the security controls that we can implement to make sure that everybody's being patched? Another thing that, for example, we might be responsible for is things like managing vulnerabilities across all of the environment, right? Making sure that all of our IT assets are being patched. So ultimately, our job is to help reduce risk across the organization to make it more difficult for attackers to compromise Asana.
So important, highly critical role. Thank you for sharing. And Christie, what about you?
Yeah, I'm the technical lead of our mobile individual productivity team. So my responsibilities are primarily to make sure that my team is running efficiently. We're meeting sprint work, hitting the roadmap goals that we've set out. I also work very closely with our product manager and our engineering manager and our designer to establish what that roadmap is. And I'm in charge and responsible to make sure that we're hitting those targets and updating the other leads on my team if things need to be shifted and rotated. Another responsibility that I have is I am the technical lead, so I am often on a lot of specs and giving my input on how we are approaching projects on the engineering level. My team is, like I said before, is a mobile individual productivity team. So my team's a mobile team. My expertise is in iOS development. And so we implement now on 4 platforms. So we have iOS, Android, and mobile server, and my team is the first team to start also building on web. So it's a lot of moving pieces because often we need to launch on all 4 platforms at the same time. So it's a lot of making sure people are unblocked, trying to get people aligned. Do we need more resources on iOS because they're behind, or do we need more resources on web? And how can we do that? So there's a lot of partnership work also involved to get things across the finish line.
Thank you for sharing, Christie. And so you started talking a little bit about the moving parts, or where you spend your time being on a lot of specs. Could you share what a typical workday in your role looks like, if that even exists?
Yeah, I can like give you a very general overview. So I like to say that my workday actually starts the day before. Usually what I do at the end of my workday is I look at all the things that I've done and what I know needs to be done. And I would bucket my work into two areas. One is like my individual contributing work. So like I code sometimes, some like what another IC on my team might do. And then there's like my TL work, specs I need to review, assign sprint work, like things that I am responsible for. And so I bucket those two things and I always prioritize TL work over IC work. And at the end of my day, I go, okay, look at my calendar. Typically, I would say 3 out of 5 of my work days are just full of meetings. So depending on my day, I prioritize what TL work needs to be done the next day. I try to be very realistic with myself. I learned when I became a TL that it was really easy to be overly optimistic about what I could get done in a day. So I try to be very realistic as what am I actually going to get done so that I don't feel overwhelmed the next day that I've put too much on my plate. So the next day is usually I come into work, I check my inbox. Is there anything that needs to be reprioritized based on what came in while I was out for the day? And then I start my day with a stand up with my team. What are they working on? This is especially important for me to make sure that things are moving along. Are they blocked? Is there anything I need to do to unblock them? And then a combo of one-on-ones, meetings, and chugging through that prioritization I did the day before.
Thank you for sharing. JD, how about you? What does your typical workday look like?
Yeah, so I'm not a morning person. So my workday usually starts between 9 and 10, and I feel very fortunate because my team is very flexible. As long as I'm staying up to date with my work, that start time is flexible. So I start by checking my Asana inbox. We don't really use email that much, so almost everything is in Asana. I check my calendar for any kind of upcoming meetings. So I try to plan accordingly. I typically have about 2 to 5 meetings per day. Because I'm in corporate security, most of those meetings are with my IT partners. So we're discussing, various security controls, maybe issues. We're planning, we're collaborating. So those are really fun meetings, in my opinion. Also may meet with vendors to talk about security tools that we want to implement or issues with the tools that we currently have implemented. I review the corporate security team sprint items. So we plan in 2-week sprints. I take the items that I'm going to work on for the day, prioritize those. Some of my work entails some coding. Because we're super Asana heavy, we write custom integrations. So we'll write integrations and ingest, for example, alerts from security tooling. So we'll use Python and write AWS Lambdas to create tasks for us in Asana so that we can respond to these alerts. Another piece of my job is, writing up technical documentation. So I mentioned we do vulnerability management. So how is the program working? What are the technical configurations that we have in place? What are some of the policies that we need, right? So for example, service level agreements for patching critical vulnerabilities. So I would be responsible for writing those out and getting feedback and implementing those types of things. Mostly interact with the team right now remotely. So we'll interact, via Slack, via Zoom, via Asana. What I really like about my team is that we do have a bunch of different weekly meetings to kind of catch up, just to kind of maybe have coffee. I created a queer sec. So it's a queer security meetup that we have every Monday, which is really awesome. So we just get to show up and be our authentic selves during this meeting. So that's a really great way to keep in contact with my security colleagues. And then I wrap up around 5 or 6, which is quite nice. Usually in security, there's a lot of burnout. And there isn't a whole lot of work-life balance, but there is on my team, which is quite shocking. And it's something that I really like because after work is done, I get to, go to Muay Thai, boxing, lift weights. So I'm really fortunate that there's that work-life balance there.
JD, I didn't realize you did Muay Thai. I trained it for over 10 years. So that's a conversation we'll have another time. But I love learning that about you, in addition to just the rest of your workday and all of the vast scope of things that you work on. Thank you for sharing. Dan, what does your typical workday look like? I know you referenced a lot of meetings earlier.
Yeah, there are some meetings in there for sure. Every day looks a little bit different. I think one of the biggest challenges I faced moving from individual contributor to tech lead to engineering manager and then to leading this like organization was I got further and further away from the like sprint tasks, from like knowing what I'm doing for the next couple of weeks and seeing that move across the board. And so in my current role, I'm doing a lot of that managing myself and then really catching up with my manager to get a sense of like, hey, are things going the way that they should be? But ultimately, I am really organizing my work when I come into work every day, taking a look at what my weekly and monthly priorities are and trying to figure out what can I get done today to help move those things along. Beyond that, I'm really getting an influx of documents that I'm reviewing, initiatives that are being considered, architectural changes that some people are thinking about, proposals. And lots of times I am just trying to make sure that, what people are thinking about is, again, moving toward our vision, moving toward our overall strategy, and trying to make sure that I'm influencing things in the best way that I can as early as possible. So that means basically being subscribed to lots of different things. And at the same time, I am leading a group of more than a couple people. Like it's many people that I'm thinking about. And so when I'm looking at these docs, when I'm reviewing these initiatives, I'm trying to think of these 25 people that are on my team and trying to think of what they are interested in, trying to make sure that their needs and their wants are being included, that their ideas for what our team can do are being reflected in what is happening around them. And in order to do that, I need to get to know them. So a lot of my days are also spent in meetings, yes, and then also in one-on-ones, getting to know who they are, getting to know what they're interested in, what's worked for them in the past, what they'd like to see happen here, and then try to reflect that back in these initiatives and these architecture reviews and basically everything that's happening around me. And at the same time, hopefully pushing us towards something greater, something that we can achieve together. Really within all of this, I am, it's really just recognizing that a lot of the work that I'm doing, like the change that I want to drive, isn't happening on a day-to-day basis, and trying to like be okay with that. That sometimes the comments that I'm leaving on a doc or the advice or feedback or the listening I'm doing in a one-on-one, like that plays out over weeks and months, just trying to find comfort in that. So my days all look a little bit different. And sometimes I see that impact played out over longer term.
I think that's a key thing to keep in mind. Sometimes we all live in the age of instant results. And so we want to see those instant results, and just being, knowing that it will come over time. Thank you for sharing. So I'm very excited, and I know the audience will be very excited to hear this as well. How did you get to where you are now? Could you share your path to this role? And JD, let's start with you.
Yeah, I hope everybody's ready for story time. So as mentioned, I'm a security engineer. I did not go to school for security though. I actually went to school and majored in math. I knew I liked to solve problems. So I went for math, but in school I realized I didn't want to be a mathematician. Didn't want to solve problems though. So I did minor in information systems. And I think that was probably one of the best choices that I could have made. In one of my IS classes, in my programming classes, after my final, my instructor went up to me and handed me a job description. It was like, hey, there's this IT internship that's opening up at a company called SpaceX. Would you be interested? And this was in 2011. So I didn't even know what SpaceX was, but I saw a rocket and I was like, that sounds cool. I want to do that. So I applied for the IT internship and I got it. So I worked at SpaceX for about 2.5 years in information technology. When I left, I was the IT lead for their support specialist team. So I led a team of about 13. I did get a full-time role there. And at that time, my partner was like, hey, I got a postdoc at UCSF. Would you be interested in moving to the Bay Area? SpaceX is in LA. And I was like, sure. Tesla is in the Bay Area. It's a sister company. It seems like a logical move. So I had applied at Tesla on the IT team and I got that job. After working there for about a year doing the same thing, I realized that I wanted to do something else. And I was sitting next to the security team. And growing up, I always thought security was like one of the coolest professions ever. I thought security engineers were like magicians and hackers were wizards. And so I was like, I really want to join this team. So I started interacting with them, started volunteering to collaborate on security initiatives. So I was able to implement some security projects like, implementing encryption and backup solutions across the company. So when a junior security position opened up, my name was brought up. And so I was able to go from IT to junior security engineer. And that's where all of the fun started because I knew nothing about security. People were throwing out acronyms and like all these terms, and I had no idea what was happening. And so when you talk about imposter syndrome, that thing was like turned all the way up to a 10, level 10. I had no idea what I was doing. And when you're in security, people come to you as an authority. So people are asking me, how do I architect this? How do I implement this? And I'm kind of like a deer in headlights. But I really wanted to take this role seriously. So what I would do is I would work all day as an engineer and go home and study for about 4 hours. So I would study IT stuff, IT certifications. I was doing trainings. I was going to conferences. Like I was really, trying to level up and take that role and authority seriously. So after many years of drinking out of a fire hose that was on fire, I was able to go from a junior security engineer to a security engineer, senior security engineer, to a staff security engineer, which is essentially one level beneath like kind of the top engineering role that you could essentially accomplish. So after being at Tesla for 8 years, I was able to kind of make a really large impact. When I started there, we were 5,000 users, employees, and when I left, we were 100,000. So I was able to implement security controls for over 100,000 employees worldwide, implement security controls in factories worldwide. So the impact was really great. But I got to a point where I was like, I really want to work somewhere that values not just my work product, but also my identity, right? So as a trans man in tech, like I felt like I wanted, to work at a company that really valued my identity as well. And so I attended this same Tequeria actually talk about a year ago, and Dan was on the panel. And I was like, wow, like these people really seem like they like their job. They talk about their pronouns. There's diverse representation. I was like, I feel like this is a company I could actually really work for. And so I set up a LinkedIn alert for a corporate security engineer position. And 6 months later, it opened up and I applied and I got the role. So now I'm at Asana. And I'm a corporate security engineer. And kind of what I'm doing now is I'm taking all of that experience that I had growing from like 5,000 employees to 100,000, taking that experience with scale and trying to build out the corporate security team at Asana. And the things that I really liked, or that I kind of, thought I liked initially from the Tequeria talk, those are all true. I feel like I'm challenged with my engineering work, but also like I really do feel like I'm seen as a person. My pronouns are respected. I've never been misgendered. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm currently on a management track. So I'm hoping that within a year's time, I'll also be able to be in a position to manage and mentor junior security engineers, just like I was, mentor them into engineering roles.
Yes, JD, thank you so much for sharing. We're so glad to have you and grateful that you chose to join Team Asana. And I love hearing about your journey, and especially how, even as you're thinking about your next step, you are giving back and, passing it on to others at the forefront as well. So I can't wait to see you continue to grow and thrive. FYI to everyone who heard JD's story, Asana is hiring. So I think by now you all have my contact info. Feel free to DM me if you're interested in talking about career opportunities. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was such an inspiring story. And I think it resonates a lot. The, not knowing, being seen suddenly, being in a role and not knowing really what to do, but just rolling with it and making sure we get our knowledge up so that we can do the things. Dan, can you share your journey to your role today?
Yeah, I can. Happy to follow that, JD. It's been awesome being on this panel with you so far, and I'm touched and honored to learn this. I found this out last week when you got to share it with us, and it's awesome to see you being inspiring to this group as we speak. Happy to try and follow that up. So similar to JD, I studied something in college that I learned that I did not want to actually do in the real world. But it was a type of engineering. It was electrical engineering, and I liked solving problems. I liked doing the problem solving part of the work. But after an internship, I learned that I just did not want to follow that particular career path. So once I graduated, I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And I realized, looking back, like, what do I enjoy doing that somebody might actually give me some money to actually afford rent to do? And looking back, I enjoyed like making web pages for clubs I was in, for bands I was in. And I was able to find, after lots of sending around my resume, this job with what I later found was a one-person company, and that would be person number 2. Helping to operate their WordPress pages. So I was figuring out PHP, I was figuring out JavaScript and HTML, kind of just figuring out how to continue to be employed by this one other person. And that lasted for a couple of months. But luckily along the way, I was able to put together enough of a portfolio where I found a job at this slightly bigger company of 20 people. It was an engineering team of 4. And I found that I liked working with teams. I really enjoyed partnering up with other people. I was certainly the more junior member of the team, so I did lots of learning from everybody, trying to figure out the right questions I could ask. And from there, I started learning more about back-end development. I started really enjoying the software aspect of things, but I was working for a company that their domain wasn't as interesting to me. And so I was able to apply and get a job at ESPN. And I'm a big sports fanatic. And so this is like a dream job. I was really excited about it. And it was a lot of fun. I spent 3 years at ESPN, moved into a front-end engineering role there. And after those 3 years, I kind of missed that back-end work. I was really getting excited about that. And there just wasn't as much of it as I expected taking on this role. I wanted something that was moving fast. I wanted a startup job. Startups sound great. This would be so much fun. And I found this company that was about 15 people big. So again, small company, big company, now small company again. And I would be engineer 3. And I joined. And it was in a domain that, again, I was not super excited about. It was not sports, but this will be fine. And we built a lot of product very quickly. I got to help build up that team. After 7 years there, we went from 3 engineers to 100 engineers. And I had to learn very quickly how to work and see what it's like when you build up a team. What parts of Scrum and Agile do you want to use? What is the business doing? How much does that matter as an engineer? Eventually figuring out what technical leadership is, and then eventually figuring out what people management can be. And along the way, I got really excited about what it was like helping connect people and watching them do great work. And that led me to the people track. And along the way, I also got really excited about, gosh, as teams of teams grow up and get bigger, the collaboration opportunities are more important, and you can't always be talking to everybody all the time. So how do you abstract away some of these things? So this whole idea of like developer tooling became interesting to me as well. And I had Asana on my short list of like, hey, if this company ever calls, you should pick up the phone. So they reached out, and I saw this opportunity to join and lead some of our developer productivity teams, and I took it. I jumped on. So that was my career path. It was a lot of, just figuring out what I liked about the last thing, what I wanted to explore, and starting to narrow in on what might be next. That's what's led me here.
Thank you for sharing, Dan. Christie, how about you? How did you get to your current role as a team lead?
Yeah, I feel like my path here was definitely not linear. There were a lot of loop-de-loops along the way. But I guess straight out of school, I learned luckily in school that I loved iOS development. So I did jump into iOS development immediately at a mobile gaming company. I think we were about 30, and by the time I left, it was about 200 people in the company. And I picked up a lot of technical skills there, a lot of independence. Like I said, they were a startup, mobile gaming. I think all the like not so great stereotypes about mobile gaming were unfortunately true for me. So I had a lot of late nights, but straight out of college, it didn't really bother me. I loved like, being up late, working through really difficult problems and like seeing people use our apps. Um, but after a while, I got tired of building games and I want to do something different. So actually a coworker of mine and I decided to start our own company. And so we built a mobile e-commerce app that was actually gaining a lot of traction. We were two. By the time I left, we were about 15 and we had successfully raised a Series B. And I had a lot of roles at my startup, from like being the only developer to being the only iOS developer, to managing the engineering team. And I think my last role was directing the operations team, because we were in shopping. So there's a lot of fulfillment, like order fulfillment involved, and a lot of how engineering meets order fulfillment and customer support. I was like, right, like that was my area of expertise in that company. But by the time I left, I wasn't coding at all. I was managing only and kind of directing like what our roadmap is. And I was happy in some ways, but ultimately very unhappy. And a turning point was in 2017 when I had my daughter. So having a family for me was always something I wanted. I always planned for it. This wasn't a surprise. But the thing that really got me when I was at my last company was I didn't plan for like my personal commitments needing to change. Like I said, I was perfectly content working from 7 a.m. to like 10 p.m. Um, but what I realized was I really needed to step away from work to be happy. And unfortunately, it took me longer than I would have liked to realize this. So I would say, like, for about a good year to a year and a half, I was really unhappy in my job. And I don't know about all of you, but I think the biggest reason for that was I grew up in a family where success was measured by your title and how hard you worked. I remember like telling my grandparents, oh, yeah, I'm a co-founder. It felt good to say that. And I felt like my self-worth was kind of measured in how tired I was, like how hardworking I was. But something that we didn't talk about was the failures, like what you didn't like about your job. Um, and I think like something that I realized was I didn't want the responsibility that I had at my last job. I did not want to be the director. I did not want to be managing a huge team, at least not with, an infant at home. So I wanted a 9 to 5 IC job. And I knew I wanted a work-life balance that I'm so glad JD has and mentioned. But I wanted to be able to come home to my family and have dinner with them. I didn't want to, just see my daughter at 5 a.m. and then that's it. And so I like to tell people, like, I used to call that being lazy, but now I call that like being realistic and prioritizing my happiness. So this is where Asana came in. I joined Asana. I was an iOS developer. I went straight back to being an IC. And I loved it. I got to dust off technical skills. I made huge impactful changes because at the time there were only 4 other iOS developers in the company. We went through a mobile reorg. I got to see like Asana really grow, at least on the mobile side. And about 1 year in, I took over the intern program as the engineering lead. And I also became very involved in early career hiring last year, or well, this is not last year, this year. In January, we piloted our returnship program, and I was the engineering partner for that as well. I'm very involved in the hiring for interns and also apprentices. But like I said before, I used to manage, I used to technical lead, and I was an IC and I was wanting something more. So this is where I went to my manager and I was like, I don't want to say I'm bored, but I feel like I could take on more. And we talked about TL being a possibility. And so we filled out my future. What are some things that I need to do to become a successful TL? And we worked on those things. And about several months later, a position opened up. I applied. I didn't get it. And so it was really nice. My manager was like, okay, these were the areas that you could have improved on to be a better candidate next time. So we did that. And then at the end of last year, it just so happened my TL wanted to leave my team. And my manager approached me and said, you've been working on all these skills. What do you think about applying now? I did. I got it. And here I am now.
Hey, congrats. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, just so many inspirational parts of your journey. And I think what you said was really important and resonated a lot with, our self-worth being so intertwined with our jobs, what we do, our titles, and how hard it can be to untangle that, to prioritize ourselves and our own needs, compared to, okay, I have this title and I want something else, but how are others going to look at me? So I think it's incredible that you were able to prioritize your needs and your happiness. And it sounds like you you ultimately brought yourself back to a place where you had that balance and found that joy. Thank you for sharing all of this. So I want to be mindful of the time, and we definitely want to engage with you in breakout rooms as well. So I'm going to ask a few more questions. So Christie and JD and Dan, you've all touched a little bit on what factors were important to you as you were considering your next step in your career. And so Dan, would you want to share, when you're thinking about yourself and the audience, like what are some of the factors that the audience could keep in mind that might be important to consider as they're thinking about the next step in their engineering leadership journey?
Yeah, of course. I think one question I really like to ask people when they are noodling about and thinking about what could be next for them, I like to ask them, think back on the last 6 months of their career, of what they're doing right now. And what was your favorite day that you've had over the last 6 months? And what was your least favorite day over the last 6 months? And usually when I ask it, you can start to see the wheels turning. People start playing back. What's happened? What was my favorite? What was my least favorite? And there's always some like spiky day, something like very different. Maybe the proverbial server room caught on fire and they really enjoyed putting out that fire. They enjoyed kind of like organizing teams toward figuring out this operations issue. Maybe they really like pairing up with somebody. Maybe they like pairing up with somebody that just joined the company and they enjoyed teaching them and showing them the ropes. And maybe their least favorite day was one where they were sitting in a bunch of meetings or where maybe they didn't talk to anybody. And so you start to get a sense of where they like to put their energy, what are the things of their day or the things that happen maybe less often right now that they want to be more a part of their day. And this sort of exploration I think is really helpful. So I encourage people to like look back and think about what was your favorite day of the last 6 months? What was your least favorite day and why?
That's a really helpful tip, one that I will keep in mind for sure. And then JD, what tools or resources have you used to determine whether a step in your growth path is right for you, and what could attendees consider?
Yeah, for me, a lot of it was like trial and error, hands-on, doing trainings and stuff like that. So like I said, security is a pretty big discipline. One of those disciplines, for example, is like red team penetration testing. So I went and I did training on that. I got hands-on and I tried to figure out like, what is it that I like really want to do, right? I tried, learning about application security, network security, all of the different kind of areas in security. So for me, it was a lot of trial and error, hands-on trainings, conferences, also networking with other security engineers. Like I did it through Tequeria. I have met other security engineers, Latinx security engineers, which is awesome. And talking about what their roles are, what their day-to-day is, right? And kind of comparing it up against mine and trying new things. I think one of the, I think, really cool things about working for smaller companies or more startups is that you're able to try new things, wear new hats, and see what works best for you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I saw a couple of questions come in already. Thank you for putting in your questions in the chat. We will have time for Q&A after the breakout room. So if you have additional questions and you want to drop them in the chat, you can do so right now. If not, you'll be able to ask them live after our breakout room. So with that, I want to thank JD, Christie, and Dan so much for sharing your journeys and the specific steps you've taken to get where you are today. I know I took some notes. Dan, what's my favorite day and my least favorite day, for example? It's a good guiding light for what I enjoy doing, thinking about where I want to go next and what I enjoy doing. And so for now, I will turn it back to Alexis because we are going to launch our breakout rooms in which we will all be together, all of the attendees, as well as the panelists in smaller groups, and we'll be able to discuss a little bit more in detail, where it is that we want to go and what the steps are that we plan to take there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Danielle. Yeah, we're just going to hop right into it. I'm just going to do breakout rooms. Feel free to ask questions, network, and do whatever at that point. And then after a few minutes, I'm just going to bring everyone back in, and then we're going to answer all the questions, especially the one that David asked in the chat as well. And I will see you shortly. So I'm going to go ahead. 1 second.
Hi, I tried to join the room 14, but no one there. I wonder, am I the only one have been assigned to room 14?
Hey, Alice, I'm going to move you right now, okay?
Thank you.
Hey everyone. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut off good conversations, but I had to bring you all back. I know there was a few that were mid sentence, so very sorry. So we're just gonna wait for everyone to get back, and then we're just gonna hop right into Q&A. So just bear with me for a moment. I hope everyone's session went well. So I'm just going to dive into that first question that David had asked. So I see that a lot of the positions are open. A lot of positions open are primarily based out of an office location. How flexible is the hiring team in considering remote hiring for those positions? So whoever part of the Asana team wants to handle that. So whether that be JD, Dan, Christie, whoever wants to answer that question, please feel free. I'm just gonna pass it off.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to share because
I'm
this
sorry.
is a question
I
that
didn't
we
even
get
realize
often.
that you were back on. I'm so sorry.
No worries. We had such good breakout room conversations. We were just holding on. But yeah, this is a question we get often. And so right now we have the ability to be fully remote, but we do expect to return to office this fall. And once we do so, we do have an office first philosophy because, as a company, we believe that there's just some type of magic that happens when you're able to kind of connect in person versus remotely when it comes to certain, teams and projects. And so the expectation is that in the fall, people will be aligned to an office. So if you see a role that you're applying to, know that while right now you can work remotely, if you're applying, let's say for a role in San Francisco, the expectation would be that you can come into the office at least 3 days a week once we fully return to the office. But all of our roles typically have a note at the top of our role that say whether they're remote friendly or whether they're tied to a location. So we do have a handful of fully remote roles as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. I was just going to pass it on because Carlos is raising his hand, so I know he's going to have a question. So Carlos, feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask away.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you all. This has been awesome. I just want to ask, earlier, Christie mentioned, and if anyone can answer, Christie mentioned more of like understanding or trying to understand the path and what they needed in order to get to that next level. Can anyone go into more detail of like, what does that actually look like? Does it mean like some sort of cadence in meetings with managers or some type of test or interview? Like, what does that mean, getting from where you are to that next level?
I can talk about what that conversation was like for me. So I think the one thing that's super useful at Asana is we have success guides. So for all engineering levels, you know what your level is. You have a success guide as what do you need to do, and it's not meant as to be as a checklist, but just like a guiding principle. Different areas from like technical leadership, project delivery. I feel like Dan probably knows these better than I do. Like growing your team or being a good teammate. I can't remember what it's called. But there's different areas, and every level has, expanding its responsibility. And so what is very helpful to go through with your manager is, where are your strengths and what are some areas that need development on. And then that's kind of like also helps you just decide like, okay, if you need more experience or more development in managing stakeholders and project delivery, then let's pump the brakes on I don't know, recruiting initiatives so that, and like, other things that might be taking your time so that you can focus on that one area of growth. You do have one-on-ones with your manager. I think every manager is a little different, but I think typically it's weekly. And then you typically also have one-on-ones with your TL. because although your TL is not responsible or like the direct responsible person for your career growth, they are the ones assigning and figuring out the roadmap. And so it's really important that they are involved in what your career growth plans are, so that they can be like, oh, okay, you want to lead a project. Let me keep that in mind so that the next project goes. Yeah, if anyone else wants to hop in and add on to that, feel free.
I do want to be mindful of time. It is 5 and there's no pressure. If speakers you want to go, we respect it. If you want to stay and chat a little bit more, I'm more than happy to have this online for a few more minutes if there's any other questions. Yes, so Danielle, is that okay? Or, just.
Yeah, if it's okay with the panelists, I think, Carlos, that was a great question. And I would love to hear, Dan, your perspective as well as a people manager. What's your preferred approach, or what are some good ways that you've seen people come to you to have those types of conversations?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer the question before hopping off. So I think that one thing that I really like to see and hear when somebody's approaching about their career is for them to come in with a sense of curiosity, a sense of like partnership, and a sense of collaboration. It's interesting when they come in with some ideas of what they could be interested in doing next. And then I also want to be able to like really figure out, what is motivating them, and hearing from them what is the why behind some things that they're exploring. And I think it's also totally more than fine. I've heard some people almost self-gatekeep about this, but I think it's totally more than fine to come to your manager. I love when people come to me and say like, I'm thinking about what's next for me, and I don't even know what that looks like. What are some options? And then we get to explore and dive in a little bit further. So I don't think it's ever too early to kind of talk about what is next, what is next even. And I think just going in with that sense of curiosity, with that sense of some ideas that you might have, and really trying to lean into like, how can we figure this out together? I think Christie laid this out really well. Like ultimately, I look for the engineer, I look for the IC to be the one who is driving their career. You are the one in charge of the ship, but I want to do everything I can to be able to either act as a lighthouse or act as like a map maker and help you kind of figure out that journey.
Thank you so much, Dan, for that response. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, I'm going to wrap this whole entire program up. I really, really appreciate everyone being part of this. Special shout out to Danielle, Christie, JD, and Dan for really just taking their time off from vacation or whatever, regular work life, whatever the case. Really appreciate you hopping on. And thank you all for attending this event. I hope you were able to take away from something. And I believe all of the Asana members have dropped their LinkedIn, so feel free to connect. Also, if you have any questions, if there's anything I can do as well, like feel free to DM me in Slack or whatever the case, and I'll try and connect you to the best person I can. And we'll just go from there. So with that being said, I hope everyone has an amazing day. I'm going to pass it to Danielle in case she wants to close as well. And that's about it.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to thank you all, thank my team. Dan, I know you're on vacation this week. I appreciate you so much for joining us and spending your time with us. And to everyone here, I'll be following up through email. You'll get a hello from me, and I'm also in the Tequeria Slack channel. So if you have any additional questions that I can answer, or if you're interested in opportunities at Asana, feel free to just DM me in the Tequeria Slack. My name is Danielle James. Or email me directly, or ask Alexis, and she'll make sure that we can connect. So thank you all for spending this time with us. We really appreciate it. It was great meeting you and getting to know what you're working on and what's next for you in the breakout rooms.
Yes, good luck to everyone on their journey. Appreciate you all. Have a great night. It's 5:00 p.m. on my time, so have a great night or day.
Bye.
Bye.